Hey, what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I'm Connor O'Gara. Will, have you ever gotten a 65% on a test?
Honestly, more than I've admitted, but at least I'm admitting it.
True. You probably felt, at least based on my experience, having gotten a 65 on a test before, you probably didn't feel as good as LSU did after its 65% performance on Saturday night, according to Dabo Swinney. I would assume, at least, that a 65% is, wow, that didn't get the job done. I would never say after someone comes into my house and takes a test and dominates it for the second half, that person got a 65%. I don't know. That's just me.
You know, man, I'm feeling great here. We had this long Labor Day weekend. I just got back from Chicago, like we talked about last time. Got to see System of a Down and Avenged Sevenfold. I feel amazing right now. That is not how I felt after I got those 65s. So I would like to respectfully disagree. As a fan, I feel better than the 65 right now.
Good. Yes. Will and I are both rocking white hats right about now. For the YouTube audience, you can see exactly what this is. You got your signature logo. This isn't an ad, by the way.
This is the all new logo. This dropped yesterday, man. That's why I've been wearing this hat backwards, trying to kind of not turn sideways and show off what my buddy Shrodrick Spikes did. But yeah, man, this is the new logo for Signature Homes. We had a whole logo rollout. I'm so fired up, and it's just really cool to see all the plan come together, man.
It is. Will's got a whole new look in general because he's going stash, just stash. If you're the YouTube audience, you can see it.
Previews here, you know, I see that Northwestern State kind of like Cajun Diablo guy. I'm not liking the comparisons, Cotter.
You're far away from that. You're good. You got a long ways to go before you're in that type of territory. We have a loaded show to get to. This is not Pumpkin Patch Saturday in the SEC. It's September. It's too early for that. We're not quite in full on fall territory. Although I'll be honest, your boy had a little pumpkin spice cold brew from Starbucks. I was feeling fall vibes, even though it's like 90 degrees. I'm wearing a sweatshirt. I don't care that it's 90 degrees. We're in September. That's officially fall as far as I'm concerned. But
what's better, Connor? The best beer on like a boys trip, or the first beer on a boys trip where you like get to the destination, post airport bar. That doesn't count, right? You go to the bar, you're all there together. That or the first pumpkin spice of fall?
First beer. First beer is still better. First beer. Yeah. The pumpkin spice, though, when it hits right, and people are going to say that's a basic thing. I like all
whatever your coffee of choice would be. You get that little nip in the air. You know what I'm saying? You hit the drive-through. You're like, I feel warm, energized, hugged.
Not saying it's an everyday thing, but you sprinkle it in. Yeah, I do things to manifest fall where I live. Sorry about it. I just got to do it. But there are probably people listening to this who need this advice. It is a little suggestion for anyone who needs to work the angles to not miss the best college football games, because that's really what we're all trying to do this time of year. This is a fall festivities opportunity early on Saturday because the noon slate is light, like real light. Unless you want to watch Arch against San Jose State or A&M against Utah State, or perhaps you want to watch some punts in the Cyhawk game, something like that. Schedule that fall activity early window on Saturday. Again, not Pumpkin Patch Saturday. We're not saying you got to go out and get pumpkins, but maybe you get yourself a little PSL. Maybe you go out and if you have leaves to rake or something like that, or you go to Target, whatever that thing is, do that and then lock in for afternoon and evening. We only have one top 25 game. It is the Michigan-Oklahoma game, which we're going to break down in a little bit here. But there are just these opportunities that we got to seek. And this is a good opportunity for a couple of hours. Not saying for a full Saturday, okay? We don't wish Saturdays away. But for a couple of hours, find that window, get yourself some good credit working in your favor.
Yeah, and I mean, in the noon slate, there are a couple of sleepers, right? We have Illinois versus Duke in an all-time coaching matchup. And hey, we all got excited for week one to see Arch Manning against light competition in Ohio State at the same level. We're going to get that matchup. It'll just be week 2 against San Jose State, so that's exciting. We love to see it.
Yeah, look, no disrespect to San Jose State. I think it'll be a little bit different than Arch going up against Ohio State with Matt Patricia. A little different, probably. But yeah, there are still a lot of good games. We have 5 SEC games to discuss. Doug Lesmerises is going to join us in a bit, talk through a bunch of different things from a Northern perspective. You're definitely going to want to stick around for that. But first, a word from our friends at Dabble. Well, I've been talking about Dabble for a while. Football season is officially here. We have NFL starting this weekend. If you're in daily fantasy, football is the best play, the best sport for daily fantasy. It absolutely is. And Dabble is the best place to do it. For those who know, it is just exploding in the app space right now. The social function, it is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports for making picks, but if you're listening to this, football is the way to do it. Use the promo code SDS2 to sign up today. $25 in bonus cash, no deposit required. That is promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Well, week 2. Let's start with a game that I think is more intriguing than the casual fan might realize. The first SEC football game of the year, of the conference slate, and a year removed from how weird this was last year. Very fitting place maybe to start this season in 2025. Number 20 Ole Miss, 10-point favorite against Kentucky. The over-under is 1 Ole Miss touchdown in the final 57 minutes and 50 seconds.
Seems significant.
Yeah, well, why did I pick that? That's a lot of time. That's a vast majority of a 60-minute football game. That's a real thing that happened last year. Ole Miss 1 touchdown in the final 57 minutes and 50 seconds. That was against Kentucky in Oxford. I do wonder if Mark Stoops has figured out something with Lane Kiffin's offense, because their last two meetings were both in Oxford, and Ole Miss averaged 19.5 points with 1 combined touchdown after the first quarter. The 22 game was wild. We had the 2 late Will Levis fumbles deep in Ole Miss territory after it looked like Kentucky was going to win that game or in position to go ahead in that game. And basically Ole Miss did not win that game because of its offense. It won that game because it got turnovers to get bailed out late. I just wonder, sometimes with certain coaches can just have each other's number. And you almost have to kind of throw out what you know about the teams. And with these two teams who played on a Saturday last year and had very different seasons, that did not tell the story of their seasons. I guess maybe it did more so for Ole Miss than Kentucky because of their shortcomings and what ultimately kept them out of the playoff. But look, maybe it's weird to say that Stoops kind of has Kiffin's number, because if you include the overtime game that they played in 2020, this 42-41 game, Lane's 2-1 against Stoops. So I don't think a lot of people would say Mark Stoops definitely has Lane Kiffin's number, but
none of them have been easy.
Yeah, none of them have been easy at all. And even 2017, when Stoops wasn't facing Kiffin, obviously at Ole Miss, another really close game, 4 consecutive really close games, 1-score games with these two teams. I think that as much as I love Austin Simmons, I think it's fair to acknowledge this is his first career road start against a defensive-minded coach who probably is going to have a thing or two to try and throw at him. And I'm not saying that Austin Simmons is walking into a hornet's nest, but Kentucky fans will absolutely show up for that. They are very close to the 2-year anniversary of their last power conference win at home.
Who is that, Connor?
That was when Ray Davis ran all over Florida, September of 2023. I feel like I've brought up that stat 5 different times, and I'm ready to move on from that. Maybe this is the day that will allow me to move on from that stat. But I just have a weird feeling this is going to be a 60-minute game. I think it's a 27-21 Ole Miss win, but the two-headed rushing attack of Kentucky is kind of what keeps them in the game with Dowdle and McGowan, and against an Ole Miss defense that might have some issues stopping the run. We'll see how that plays out this year. Could be an Achilles heel. I wouldn't bank on them struggling against the pass with Zach Calzada after watching the 3.7 yards per attempt he mustered against Toledo.
Connor, okay, so story time. I was in Chicago last weekend, right? And sports betting is legal in Illinois. So I touched down the plane, threw a couple homer bets in LSU, obviously. Next couple bets I made were the under in the Kentucky game, which hit going away.
Smart.
And then I took Kentucky -10, which didn't cash and equaled it out. And that pretty much, I should have seen that coming.
That spread was originally, I think, 7 and then 7.5. And then it moved to 10. So, yeah.
And then the bozos like me touched down to do states, and they were dumping dumb money in there. And that's how they built those casinos, folks.
That's how they do it. That's exactly it. But, yeah, I think this one ends up being a little bit closer than maybe the casual fan expects. But the late breaks, much like 22, will go Ole Miss's way. 5th consecutive time in the Stoops era that this will be a 1-score game as it finishes.
Yeah, it sounds insane, but I think this is fundamentally two sickos matching up on the same side of the ball, right? We could talk about play callers and schemes, all this different stuff, but fundamentally, this is Lane Kiffin's offense versus Stoops' defense. And that's been the strength of the program when they've been good, right? And they're two head coaches that have seen each other a ton. And again, this is not exactly a rivalry, but a matchup I would love to see, more of with these two head coaches because they've all been freaky sicko games. You, of course, remember one time lad of the week, Chris Partridge. Showing his little side chub, at the end of the game after showing the second fumble.
Cleared of all wrongdoing at the Connor Stallions case.
You must acquit, he fell out the sword there. And so, yeah, I mean, Will Levis playing like he was covered in mayonnaise in that game. But point being, like every one of these games has been fun. So I can't assume after, Kentucky wins this game, last year that it won't be close again. And it's one of those things where, you kind of look back at how you handled something or maybe you get in the blinders if you get in an argument or something and you say like, how did I not see this error? And I feel like Lane Kiffin probably felt that way after last year's Kentucky game where it was like, 58 minutes. I didn't score a touchdown at 58. Like there were probably guys running wide open when you look back at the tape. There are probably some decisions that he was like, why did I do that? Just kind of looking in the mirror the next day. I bet Lane is very fun in the film room because I'm sure he's really self-critical. So it would be hard for me to project another win for Kentucky, but I think it would be disrespectful at this point to not say that Stoops has at least got a little something on Lane Kiffin.
It is weird that it's a revenge game for Lane, isn't it?
Yep.
This game held him out of the playoff.
Yeah.
You can argue about 9-3 and what it means compared to 11-2 and whatnot. This game held you out of the playoff. And if you don't take that personally, if you're Lane Kiffin, you're letting an opportunity slip away. I am sure that he will be taking it personally. I just don't know that it's going to be the best game for the Austin Simmons hype train. Still working out what this new look ground game is going to look like. They really like Lacey coming over from Mizzou. Looks like he's going to end up being their feature back. A guy that was decorated and was, Mizzou was hoping was going to be kind of like their running back of the future. But in the first game of the season, he kind of was the one that took control of that backfield. They need that this year, and they need it in a game like this because it could be difficult for Austin Simmons to pick up big chunks of yards against a Mark Stoops coach defense. So yes, I think this one ends up being a little bit closer than expected. Kansas, Mizzou. Mizzou's a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under I have is 1.5 reminders of that 2007 game.
Connor, these two teams bleep and hate each other. I love this rivalry so much. This is like my favorite. I like this better than like Florida FSU, where it comes out. The South Carolina Clemson one's really fun too. But in terms of an out-of-conference rivalry that's sneaky, these two teams, like we have Drink talking about Civil War soldiers invading Kansas territory. I want to know everything about this rivalry.
It is more probably a basketball rivalry than a football rivalry, but no love lost on the football field as well. Absolutely none. It's fun to think about how big that game was in 2007. It kind of tells the story of the season in a lot of ways. You cannot tell the story of chaotic 2007 without bringing up the fact that these were two top three teams that faced off in a regular season finale. For the right to go to the Big 12 championship, for the right to, maybe play in a national championship. Like all of that was on the table for these two teams. And Chase Daniel
of course, you could remember, or like my memory of that game too is the picture of Mark Mangino next to the Orange Bowl mascot, which was Dan Le Batard. The Dan Le Batard show's avatar on Twitter for so long. I remember looking up at like 2015 and being like, "Why is this picture still their avatar?" Because it's one of the funniest images in college football history. So round, so rotund, two little circles just kind of awkwardly hugging. What a time to be alive, Connor!
It was. I remember being at a buddy's house playing poker that night, thinking as a 17-year-old who was admittedly more of a casual college football fan at that point in my life. But I remember thinking it's very weird that these two teams are playing with such high stakes, such unbelievably high stakes. And even as a 35-year-old looking back at that game, I'm like, yeah, it was weird that it played out the way that it did. These stakes are a little different. Week 2, not regular season finale, not in the Big 12 anymore. Mizzou, Kansas still in the Big 12. You're right, though. Mizzou fans hate Kansas so much. So much. It's weird that this is the first time playing not in Kansas City since 2006.
Well, it's because Dylan Raiola has been camping there. He won't let anyone else in.
Well, look, God made him that way. It's not his fault he looks exactly like Patrick Mahomes and does every single thing he can possibly do like Pat Mahomes and is just trying to live his exact life. Just have an original thought. I've got something I've been wondering about with Mizzou.
Okay. I have plenty. So right there.
Lots of things. I watched the opener, the Thursday night game. The extended quarterback battle was what I was tuning in for. Wanted to see what Bo Pribula looked like throwing downfield. That box was checked. Wanted to see Sam Horn just playing football, and that box was obviously not checked because he came into that game first half, which was earlier than expected, and then boom, very first play, he just takes a wrong hit on a defender coming downhill, and then boom, you very quickly realize like he's going to be out, and he's seriously hurt. Major bummer for that guy who, look, I didn't think that Sam Horn was going to win that job, but still is trying to play football and has options in baseball, obviously drafted by the Dodgers, but still he's playing football because he wants to play football and wants to see if he has a path to become a quarterback and become a guy. And this was an opportunity that Drink gave to him and didn't just say, you're going to just sit on the bench and not get any reps. He needs legitimate reps. Now being out indefinitely, it kind of changes things for Mizzou. They've got a true freshman backup to Pribula in this game and moving forward. And Bo Pribula does not know how to protect himself yet.
And he maybe never will, Cotter. If you watch him run, it doesn't feel like he's any interest in that.
He played that game, that week 1 game. And I get it. Juices are flowing. You're fired up. It's your first game starting. He played that game like a backup who thought he could just go full throttle. And basically like what he was asked to do at Penn State. Mizzou suddenly lacking quarterback depth with the Horn injury would maybe change how they're going to use him. Maybe. And worst case scenario would be Pribula showing this early promise, which I do think he did, albeit in a very favorable FCS matchup, and then getting hurt before SEC play gets kicked off. That would be worst case scenario for Mizzou. They need to avoid that at all costs. So how do they approach that? How does Drink and Kirby Moore kind of corral that?
I think there's an answer here, because if you ask both of those people, right, Drake and Bo Pribula, I feel like they're going to play chicken. Neither of them is going to want to take the foot off the gas. But you just started to mention it before I got to cut you off here. The answer is former Mizzou legend Chase Daniel, right? All he needs to do is go talk to Bo Pribula, show him his Chase account, his bank account, and be like, look here, son. If you could just protect yourself, learn the playbook, be polite, strong handshake, this is what awaits you. If you want to keep playing like that, I don't know if you'll make it to SEC play, you know?
The problem is Chase Daniel threw for roughly 1 billion yards at the college level and earned the right to be able to do that at the NFL with a clipboard. Bo Pribula is still trying to show the world I can be a starting quarterback at a power conference program, and I'd like to be able to get to that level, but there's a ways to go to get there. And he feels like this is the way that he needs to play, or at least at this stage of his career, he looks like someone who is going to leave everything out there. And that's good. Like that's what made him an attractive piece in the portal and why he left Penn State ahead of a playoff run, because he has the speed, the instincts, the toughness. They're there. Like the early returns on him throwing the football downfield were really promising. Like the release, all that stuff looks really good. But in this game, how much does Mizzou want Bo Pribula, the runner? He can take on some contact. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not sure that you want him getting 15 rushing attempts per game. And especially if he's going to approach all of these runs like a backup quarterback whose body is just, made of iron. It's not. One of the things I noticed with Jackson Arnold in that Baylor game, Jackson Arnold is taking those slides when he knows he's got a first down, or he knows like, hey, I'm not getting the first down. I'm going to get, 6, even though I could probably get 8 if I wanted to get into a collision, but there's 12 to gain. So I know that, live to fight another day, keep the offense moving. Let's get this momentum going. I think that Bo Pribula, while he can't totally take away the physicality part of his game, I'm not saying he needs to completely take it away. He's got to start doing more to protect himself, or else he's not going to last a full season. Because, well, go ask his counterpart in this game about the importance of staying healthy. Jalen Daniels is on season 6 of college football. That sure
is still. Jalen Daniels is giving campus tours of Kansas University. He was supposed to be gone. His head coach was supposed to be gone. They're just trapped in some type of a Twilight Zone episode where they have to just keep playing football.
He is trying to get to double-digit games in a season for the second time. He has played double-digit games in a season once.
Hey, but wait till Kalen DeBoer gets his hands on that guy. Watch out.
Whoa. Lance Leipold's doing just fine. As long as he's out there and healthy. That's the biggest thing. I don't think Jalen Daniels has any more eligibility after this year, but who knows? Nobody actually knows. I think he'll be in a tough spot. I think he's going to be in a tough spot against what I think is a really underrated Mizzou defense. Josiah Trotter is the best player on that Mizzou defense, and I think SEC fans are going to learn that name very, very soon. You already probably know the last name because his dad is Jeremiah Trotter, the Eagles great, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. played at Clemson. I get it from that standpoint. I think Josiah Trotter is going to be really, really important for what Mizzou does in a game like this. I think they win 30-21. So Mizzou covers, wins a rivalry game. Bo Pribula is in one piece by the end of the game.
Funniest thing about this game is it's like a must-win game for Drink in a way that only his fan base will care if he loses it, but they'll really care. And if he beats Kansas, it's just expected. And so, but again, I think this is why he fits in so well at Mizzou. I think he plays up these little rivalries and lets people know that he's bought into the culture and all that. And what does kind of scare me a little bit is that, when Kansas has had Jalen Daniels over the half decade plus that they have had him, and I got to be sure not to call him Jaden Daniels, obviously.
So hard to say Jalen Daniels instead of Jaden Daniels.
Yes, and I don't know if I sent you this meme. I have this. It's half Osama bin Laden, half Jalen Rose, because Jalen Rose created that name. Jalen. Now there's a Jaden, a Jalen. There's Y's, there's N's. Wait till that gets to the suburban South, buddy. We're gonna have Jay Raylan with like E's and I's in there. But yeah, point being, they've played some good to great football. We've seen them in some of the upsets against Oklahoma and stuff. And the problem is that, he has been so unavailable. It's kind of like Indiana. That's kind of why I made that joke about DeBoer, where when he's been hurt, we've seen them be very sorry. When he's been healthy, we've seen them be pretty good. And he's obviously as healthy as you could get as a 32-year-old gentleman playing college football. But I think that they need to kind of establish that early. But that being said, I'm not too worried about Mizzou in this one. And I think that Pribula, it's going to be hard to slow him down. But for Drink at this point this season, I think he's just like, let's get this dub. Let's slow you down as the year goes on. They might need all of them against Kansas.
Going to need some Ahmad Hardy in this game as well. It was kind of weird. It was kind of a theme of week one of weird backfield situations. Just backfields that you're like, wait a minute, this guy was billed as the starter and he's not getting carries to start off the game. Ahmad Hardy didn't start this game, but he still ends up running for 100 yards. So that's kind of an afterthought. But like the Jaden Ott situation, Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame not getting the work that many expected him to. Mekhi Hughes at Oregon was another one where you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And Ahmad Hardy needs to be leaned on heavily. I think he will be in this game, and especially knowing that Mizzou, we talked about the offensive line being better, and I think they're going to be able to run the football effectively with that offensive line, but they're still kind of figuring things out on the left side with Caden Green, the decorated former Oklahoma transfer who they're playing at left tackle this year, and he's been an interior offensive lineman in the first part of his career, but that was kind of an issue in that first game, and Pribula was taking some shots where you're like, man, they need to protect him better on the left side, or else he's going to be taking even more of these shots than he already brings on himself with the amount of contact he likes to initiate as a runner.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is it's hard to grade the kid on not taking good hits when he can have some of the struggle with the offensive line. But yeah, I think like kind of like that being said, I love the Jackson Arnold comp there, because Jackson Arnold was actually a pretty smart runner in that game against Baylor. He wasn't the guy who was trying to bowl people over. We saw that, I believe, the two-lead game. The quarterback was just seeking contact. And that's how great runners are, especially at the college level, even more so at the NFL level, where they're not facing up these like 300-pound Leviathans and just trying to lower a shoulder. Diego Pavia is kind of the only guy who really does that, maybe a little bit of a tier, but we saw how that wore and tore, I guess, on Pavia throughout the year. So I think that's exactly what we're looking to see out of Pribula, is getting a little bit more of the smart running and not as much like the hard running,
Definitely. Will be very interesting to see if Mizzou can avoid a rivalry letdown at home. All right. Number 15, Michigan. Number 18, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 5.5-point favorite in this one. The over-under I have is 322 yards of Michigan offense. Very specific. Under Sharon Moore at Michigan. They exceeded that mark once last year against a power conference team, and it was last year against Northwestern, who power conference. We sure?
Watch out now. That's your 9th conference game right there. You got to go. Nobody goes into where are they?
A stadium that was built on the lake so
off
that
the
they
coast
could renovate
somewhere. It's like a pirate ship with football.
More or less, the wind is a bit of a problem on the shores of Lake Michigan over there. Their offense obviously struggled last year. Lincoln Riley's USC team led up exactly 322 yards to Michigan. Different Michigan team, specifically different Michigan quarterback. Bryce Underwood looked as advertised in the opener. Granted, it was at home against Fresno State, but the things that you like were there. Trusted his guys to win those battles on the outside, trusted his scheme would work to his advantage. He had a throw where his back foot was on Michigan's goal line, and the tight end looks like he's blocking initially, and then he leaks into the wheel route. And Underwood is basically tasked with holding it at the mesh point on play action long enough to be able to freeze the over the top safety. And then once he sees that the tight end is even with the corner, he's going over the top. And he's got to put the ball in a really tough spot. And he does it by putting the ball in a place that only his guy can get to. And it almost felt like the safety was stunned that he threw with such anticipation and such accuracy in that moment. Really, really impressive stuff for a guy playing in his first college game. Like those boxes were definitely checked. There will likely be moments in this game in which you go, oh, I get why Michigan moved mountains to steal that guy from LSU.
It's pretty
Makes
good.
sense. Pretty good.
It's pretty good.
They might have themselves a dude. But I can't help but think that there will be more moments in which we go, oh, I get why a true freshman quarterback seeing a Brent Venables coach defense is advantage Venables. He will confuse him. He will do everything in his power to confuse him.
I'll say there, I mean, that reminds me of when Venables was at Clemson, and I got to, see him take on Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow was shocked at some of the exotic blitzes and stuff that they were bringing at Clemson, especially with the talent they had up and down the field. I don't think we've seen that quite as much at Oklahoma. It seems like it was more of a trusting unit last year, that guys just ended up where they needed to be. Kind of just, everyone just knew where everyone was, and it was a little bit less risky, a little bit more like we're all just going to play our role and there will be no gaps. But that being said, that's in there for Venables. I mean, the ability to design these plays. We always joke about, guys like Chip Kelly or whatever drawing up plays, or Heupel drawing up plays on the sidelines. Venables can do that on defense, and against a young quarterback like Bryce Underwood. Again, if you could pass the test that Joe Burrow struggled with for a quarter and a half in his last collegiate game before going number one, I'm a little bit scared for the weird. We're going to see guys coming out of the stands. There's going to be a dude in a disguise with a fake mustache holding popcorn, chugging towards the quarterback. It's going to be great.
And Brent Venables, say what you want about him as a head coach, he's capable of doing that. He's still very capable of doing that, especially now as his own defensive coordinator. But, think back to that Alabama game last year where Jalen Milroe, who's at the end of year 2 as a starter, comes out of halftime and throws that wide receiver screen basically to Eli Bowen. Just didn't know what he was looking at coverage-wise. Like, go back to the Auburn game where I understand that Peyton Thorne was a walking interception. I totally get that. But that late pick that he throws to Kip Lewis, Peyton Thorne didn't know what he was looking at. And Brent Venables is always going to try and do what he can to confuse you with coverages. And I think he's capable of doing that. And I'd be surprised if they weren't game planning for Michigan throughout the offseason. No disrespect to Illinois State. We don't disrespect Illinois State in the great town of Bloomington Normal.
Shout out Blono, man. Shout out Blono. Yeah, one of my friends actually went there. And was it Bloomington Normal?
Two of mine. Yeah, two of my best friends growing up went to Bloomington Normal. Many spring break, March Madness. Their spring break was always different than like ours, my Iowa buddies, and we would go down there for March Madness and do what college kids do. It's good times, really good times. But yeah, I think there's a concerning element there if you're a Michigan fan of knowing that those mistakes are probably going to come. It's just a matter of how catastrophic are they? Like, is it happening on taking a sack on 3rd and 9 and you're not able to convert, or are you taking a sack and is it a strip sack fumble or something like that because you've got a true freshman quarterback that's trying to do more than he should in that spot? That's going to be what this game comes down to. I think on the Oklahoma side, I'm a little concerned that in sack adjusted rushing yards per carry, Illinois State had a 5 to 3.5 advantage. That's
not great.
That's not. And again, no disrespect to Illinois State. Alabama transfer Justice Haynes. He can go. He can go.
Glad they called that guy. Wow.
Yeah. Michigan is glad they called that guy. Alabama could have used that guy last week. That would have helped. He can do the heavy lifting if that isn't cleaned up. And maybe Michigan says, we'll have our true freshman quarterback throw 15 times a game, and maybe he's going to turn the ball over once. Maybe he's going to take a few sacks here and there, but we'll let Justice Haynes kind of be the driving force of our offense. And meanwhile, on the other side for Oklahoma, we talk about like weird running back situations. Jaden Ott didn't get a carry until the 4th quarter of the opener. He played just 4 offensive snaps. This is a decorated post-spring transfer coming over from Cal. And just
where's
some
your
weird
grades,
vibes.
son? How you been doing in them classes?
I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, Will, because Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator, talked about how Ott is in a good headspace. And Venables said afterwards that Ott is close to being 100% after he missed a lot of practice, again, post-spring transfer, and that they expect him to play a lot more against Michigan.
See, they got to get their stories straight there. I'm glad that you highlighted that because that doesn't exactly line up. One guy is like his mental is looking good. The other is like his physical is looking good. Y'all got to know what the issue is.
Or at least what you're going to tell the world that the issue is. I don't know. Maybe it's all of it. Maybe he didn't know the playbook enough, and they don't want him not knowing the playbook and having John Mateer get killed or something like that. Where like, oh, you think he's going to be here on a handoff, and then he's just not, and then you just get blasted by a defensive end. I don't know. Okay,
maybe he was partying at the Alabama team hotel.
Maybe he's getting an Uber Eats order at 1 a.m. and you're just like, oh boy, we can't have this guy playing football tomorrow for us.
Alabama, that's how I know some of these are fake. Every Alabama team hotel story gets worse. It's like a game of telephone. It's like they're hiding a dragon back there. They're brewing Polyjuice potion in the Alabama locker room. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't think to this point we'll give Oklahoma the benefit of the doubt and say that they're not doing those things just yet, or at least that's not been the case. But if they lose this game by a lot of points, who knows? I probably buried the lead here by not bringing up John Mateer and the opportunity that he has in what's the biggest game in college football this weekend. And, College game day is going to be in the house, and it's a chance to show that you are significantly better than your predecessor, which is not the only thing John Mateer has to worry about. But everybody in Oklahoma remembers how that first big primetime showdown went for Jackson Arnold with him getting benched before halftime. Say it again.
I said, how'd that go, Connor?
It did not go well, Will. It did not go well. Don't need to remind anyone of that. It did not go well. I will be amazed if John Mateer balls out.
Yeah.
Amazed. And Wink Martindale made Will Howard and Jalen Milroe look like they were true freshmen last year. He really did. Like, they were befuddled and could not do anything against Wink
befuddling.
A lot of befuddling was going on.
And Wink Martindale, too. I mean, to his credit, like, we could talk about Michigan being, cheaters, X, Y, and Z, but they have now had enough games since the kind of style stuff broke where everybody was watching their every move, where they have just shut down great players. You mentioned two of them right there, where at some point we got to just believe this was a talented team, unfortunately. We don't have to respect them necessarily, but we got to give Wink Martindale some credit, I think.
Definitely. And did that without their best corner, too.
Yeah.
Without Will Johnson. Yeah, it was very, very impressive. I don't think either of these offenses is going to have a coming out party. I don't. But I do think the biggest advantage on the field is going to be Brent Venables throwing a ton at a true freshman quarterback in his first career road start, first start against power conference competition. I think Oklahoma wins this one 21-10. Real low scoring.
Yeah, I think that there could be a little bit of a how do you like me now element here. If you look at both Venables and John Mateer and kind of where they've come from and waiting forever to get this chance versus Bryce Underwood, who's, knows the $20 million kid, gets to start, after kind
20?
of
It's up to 20?
No, I know. I'm rounding up for effect.
Okay.
I believe one of the numbers, what they said was like 19. It was pretty close to it from what I heard. But point being, if you're John Mateer, you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I've been updating the LinkedIn bio. I've been carrying water. I've been doing everything I can to get a Power 5 or a Power 4 offer. Now, he's been in college. Like, he started with the Power 5 pretty much, like he had kind of moved up the ranks. And so I think if you're John Mateer, it's like, hey, like, this is why it's worth trusting a veteran guy. And when we look at two of the best defensive minds in the game, at almost at all levels, because Wink has been up and down. Venables has been doing this for 20, 30 years at the college level. Whenever you have such a matchup of defensive titans, team at home, team with the veteran quarterback, you start to like some of that stuff. I could see it. I could see Oklahoma here for sure.
Wink Martindale coming down from the NFL ranks. I wonder if this is going to become a thing. And I realize he's in year 2 at Michigan, but I wonder if this is going to become a more prevalent topic of conversation with guys like Matt Patricia as well, where all of a sudden you're seeing these NFL guys that come down to the college level and you realize they're very, very smart. And some of the things that they can do are extremely complicated. I think if John Mateer is feeling good and looking, dare I say, worthy of those Baker Mayfield comps, then that is a great, great sign for Oklahoma ahead of SEC play. I just don't necessarily expect that to be the case. This is a win by any means necessary game for Oklahoma, so I'm not saying that style points are necessarily, a factor, but some context, if Oklahoma's offense balls out, like, this would be no small feat to do that on this stage, and knowing how difficult it has been for teams to be able to score against Michigan like since they've kind of figured this defense out a bit, or at least dating back to last year. So should be a good one. Should be a very good game.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say too, I think either side, like if Bryce Underwood comes out, and I've said before, I have nothing against the kid. Like I would have taken probably the same decision he did to go to Michigan, especially as a hometown kid, get paid the money and everything. So no hard feelings there, and I'll happily come on here if he carves up a Brent Venables defense, say, oh my gosh, I wish LSU would up their offer. They waited a year too late to give Brad Kelly the money, whatever. But I think that this is why, maybe this is the sunny side of the expanded playoffs. All these kind of random matchups we're seeing is that, like, sure, I guess Michigan can travel to Oklahoma in week 2, and we get to see Bryce Underwood versus John Mateer. That'll work.
And maybe a sense of urgency for Michigan before Sherrone Moore serves a suspension. Not that suspensions for Michigan head coaches have ever mattered. Didn't matter against Penn State. Mm-hmm. There could be a little bit of this us against the world thing that they're able to tap into for this one. I just think it's going to be a difficult thing to do in that building.
And I'll say really quick too, I'm other than the money, right? I think that's what Underwood was bought into, is that the defense is going to be solid and they're going to not make him look silly in the way that they were kind of able to do under Sherrone Moore with JJ McCarthy, who was like, hey, we're going to hand the ball off 30 plus consecutive times and not have you out here trying to win the game by yourself. And so you really do trust this coach and defensive coordinator combo. So like I said, I don't have any disrespect on either side of this. I'm going to be locked in.
Yeah, and if you think about like the young quarterbacks that Brent Venables faced, I don't even know if the Lenore Sellers example last year of him being a redshirt freshman is fair, just because of how wild that game was in the first 6 minutes with Oklahoma's turnovers. I don't think you could look at that game plan and go, well, he didn't do this, this, and this when it's 21-0 before people are in their seats. So there's maybe not a ton of those examples last year, but I just tend to think elite defensive mind, young quarterback. Experience matters. Experience will matter in a game like this. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, number 12, Arizona State, 6.5 point favorite at Mississippi State. The over-under I have is 2 mentions of Arizona State using cowbells in practice to simulate Davis-Wade Stadium. My Lord.
How to do with the air quotes here.
I am, because if you saw the tweet from Justin Lacertosa, yeah, threw a little accent on there. Sorry, Justin, I probably just butchered your last name. Arizona State is using cowbells to simulate the noise. I put cowbells in air quotes because these cowbells that they are using are not Mississippi State cowbells. And let's just say if more than single-digit people are shaking them at Arizona State's practice, I'd be surprised. This would be like sitting, and this is right up your alley, Will. This would be like sitting down to play NCAA 26 in Sanford Stadium and being like, oh, Sanford Stadium, like it got stadium pulse going like this. And then thinking that would prepare you to walk into actual Sanford Stadium for a 7:30 kickoff.
So you're watching your team get blown out. You're like, I could call better plays than, Mike Bobo, Joe Sloan, or whatever. It's like, guys, it's really hard to do this. I don't know if you see when guys put stuff on tape, you can't do the same stuff again.
Yeah, you were in your living room playing Xbox.
Yes.
You're not going up against Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann. No, you were not. I'm not saying Arizona State will struggle in that atmosphere because Lord knows everybody who has played in that atmosphere has not struggled at all in recent memory. But I am saying that the 8 or 9 pint-sized cowbells that Arizona State is busting out at practice, those will not be the reasons why Arizona State is ready to roll on Saturday night.
I mean, those are calf bells, right? Especially in comparison. I mean, these every time I see a Mississippi State cowbell, it's like a two-handed, like broadsword apparatus. Whatever people have, like the custom ones now, they have like tassels and features to them. So I feel like you really can't. You almost have to sneak in, and steal cowbells from Mississippi State to recreate what they have going on down there.
Yeah, those build up the forearm strength to get those things going. These little things that they're shaking at Arizona State's practice, like I guess your fingers, maybe your wrist is getting a workout. That is not forearm stuff that we're talking about.
And naturally, they have to train those forearms for their annual fight in the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss fans, right? So they got to be ready to get the forearms going, square up, because you're going to have at least about 100 fights in the stand. So you got to be ready and working those arms all season, not just for every week.
They'll learn. And look, this is tough for me to say because I'm usually all in with everything Kenny Dillingham says or does. I love me some Kenny Dillingham. That is my fellow 1990 Taurus. Yeah.
Like the car?
Not the car. We're talking signs here. We're talking signs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Allure.com tells me that a Taurus enjoys relaxing in serene, bucolic environments surrounded by soft grounds, soothing aromas, and succulent flavors. I don't know what sort of succulent flavors will be in the air in Stark Vegas on Saturday night, but I can assure you that Kenny Dillingham will be enjoying the soothing sound of 50,000 cowbells. I can assure you that. This all sounds...
After getting notes that like I was kind of breathing and talking too much, I was in Chicago obviously last time. Mike might have been a little bit too close to my face. Sorry about that, guys. Wasn't prepared for the astrology breakdown by Connor. That's the type of deep research. You said this was allure.com. They're like
allure.com.
That's the there's a okay, so there's like a beauty product. Okay, so my man is ready for the 1990 Taurus comp.
I wanted to look it up for myself after realizing that we're the same sign. He was born a week before I was. So I was like, maybe we just see the universe the same sort of way. And that's why I'm always finding myself agreeing with Kenny Dillingham. I would not have had those size cowbells if I were running a football team and trying to simulate an atmosphere. I would
look at this. You know how rare it is, Leslie? A word that I just straight don't know. Bucolic relating to the pleasant country. You said countryside, country life. So again, cowbells, I see it, right? The countryside, the peaceful. Maybe he can't be scared of the cowbells.
You didn't think you were getting bucolic on this podcast today. You got it several times over. How do you like that? This all kind of sounds like I'm doing Arizona State, they're going to run into a buzzsaw. The SEC is going to hit them, square in the mouth. Now, I'm not saying that. I think I'm going to need to at least see some semblance of a Mississippi State pass rush against a power conference opponent before I actually believe that's a realistic possibility. And I realize they played a close game last year. That was a game in Tempe. I think Arizona State was much better down the stretch than who they were early in the season when they're still figuring out their identity. But behind a veteran offensive line that Arizona State returns, I get it. They don't have Cam Scatterbo. They return a lot of guys beside him. I think they were third in percentage of returning production. Mm-hmm. I think Sam Leavitt will enjoy relaxing in a serene, bucolic environment known as the pocket. Mm-hmm. Or if he's not able to relax in the pocket, he'll just kind of casually roll out, buy time, dare Mississippi State to cover Jordan Tyson for 6 seconds. I think that duo is going to ball out. He had 12 catches in his return to the lineup. Everybody was talking about what a tough loss that was for them late in the season last year. One of the best receivers returning in all of college football. I think I took him in our non-quarterback Heisman draft. I think I took him with my last pick in the non-quarterback Heisman draft that we did.
Yeah, it's if you see Scatterbo, you think, well, clearly this is a one-horse team. Clearly this character, this freak is just out here pushing people over. The distance between him and Jordan Tyson is not that massive. Jordan Tyson is a top-level, like, S-tier receiver coming back. And to your point, they didn't have him against Texas. And, it would be foolish to take the SEC mentality of, they haven't seen the Cowboys, they haven't gone to Starkville. When they went into Atlanta and just punched Texas in the mouth over and over and over again without Jordan Tyson. And, video game numbers, but 12 receptions in week 1.
Yeah. They relied on him a lot. I don't think they wanted to rely on him as much. It was a little bit too close for comfort, but you shake the rust off a little bit in the opener. Unlike last year when Mississippi State made this basically a Pac-12 after dark game and had this furious comeback late, made it a 60-minute game in which Cam Scatterbo kind of has to close the door for Arizona State. I think Arizona State kind of keeps its foot on the gas in this one. I think they win 38-24.
Yeah, and this is an Arizona State that we've joked about was picked to finish last in the Big 12 media poll going into the year, and part of the reason why they did away with it this year, right? And so they were certainly ahead of schedule last year. Now, maybe we could talk about Kenny Dillingham's schedule and what he expected, right? But this was kind of supposed to be the good team. Scatterbo, obviously, I'm not going to say he came out of nowhere, but I don't think anybody expected him to be that, one of the best players in college football last year. So that accelerated their timeline. But you talked about it. Sam Leavitt, talked about Jordan Tyson and the way that they were able to hang with Texas. I think this game might be a little bit worse than last year for Mississippi State. I would take Arizona State minus 6.5 here because, and again, Levy, we're not out on him yet, but it just feels like Dillingham has gotten there quicker.
Definitely. A different situation that he walked into, I think. But
I would argue that Arizona State situation was just as bad, or if not worse, with all the infractions and the Herb Edwards and all that. I mean, they give him credit,
Definitely deserves a lot of credit. Look, 1990 Taurus. We're not. Come on,
yeah.
I'm giving him credit. You know that. Yeah, Sam Leavitt also does this weird thing where he just seems to love operating outside of the pocket more than he probably has to. It's the freshman Bo Nix. It's the shortstop that turns the routine play into the unnecessary, spectacular type play. And so maybe Sam Leavitt does a little bit of that in this game on the road. Like that's possible. That's probably Mississippi State's path to victory, is that he does that in some instances in which he shouldn't. And, Mississippi State gets a turnover or something like that. But I just tend to think he's going to be in control in this one. All right, Will. Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's a 1-point favorite. The over-under is also 1. One Pavia brother arrested.
Come again?
If you saw over the weekend, the Pavia brothers got a little too turned in Nashville after beating an FCS team. Misdemeanor charges of public intoxication and resisting arrest. Will, can you imagine getting that call as a police officer to arrest the Pavia brothers?
I mean, that's got to be like, first off, Vandy, get it together with the Nashville PD, man, for a misdemeanor. But at the same time, they probably had to be causing so much of a scene. There was probably a little bit of arresting or resisting there to where it's like, sir, we have to end this situation. Like, we would love to not take you to jail tonight.
I'm not saying that it was Morgan Wallen throwing chairs off the roof, but it probably wasn't that far away from it.
That feels so different from like most other 99% of college towns too, because it's like, that's weird, but it's not the weirdest thing the PD has probably seen.
Can you think of the amount of times in which cops pass up arresting someone in Nashville?
Yeah, that's a good point, because most people are tourists too. It's like, I don't want to ruin your life here having you get a drunk and disorderly in Nashville. Yeah, I would love to see a GoPro of the post game there. I bet that was electric.
Yeah. On one hand, Diego Pavia could be like, buddy, it's a typical weekend in my household. What are you talking about? Hey, I'm not going to let that get to me. That's a Tuesday. Whatever. It happens. On the other hand, it could spark a pissed off Diego Pavia. Maybe he convinces himself that Enter Sandman is actually being played for him, and it's not the soundtrack to one of the most electric entrances, not just in college football, but really in all of sports.
Do you think he'll go for like the Boz style, like bleep the police shirt or something? Do you think he'll get an infraction for trying to protest the arrest? What are we thinking?
I would hope not. I would hope Diego and his resisting ways. I think he won. You beat the NCAA.
Yeah, fair.
I take that up with the Nashville PD if you got an issue. Maybe don't let that bleed over into this game on Saturday night. But yeah, he's going to show up ready to go. And if he's not ready to go, I think that intro will get him ready to go. You watch that entrance, Will, and we don't get a chance to talk about this a lot because Virginia Tech, like hosting an SEC team, is, that's not something that happens all the time. And I realize Virginia Tech just played South Carolina on Sunday.
Shout out to their AD man who just scheduled 2 of these. Anyway,
Whit Babcock. Yeah, sure. I know these things. We're gonna get. I got a thought on Whit in a little bit that I'm going to get to in a second here. But you watch that intro and you wonder how Virginia Tech doesn't win every game by 1,000 points and why they don't sign every recruit in America. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a school, man, especially with kind of their not super recent history, but kind of the course of our lives. I feel like they're about a donor away. That DMV area is so talented. Guys like, AI, Jonathan Allen, Vic are from there. And a lot of those guys end up going to Maryland, right? And so, yeah, I mean, that just seems like such a fun environment to play in.
And by the way, Will means Allen Iverson for the kids out there that know AI is one thing. We know AI is another thing.
Biggest getting old thing is like artificial intelligence. The answer.
The answer. Yeah. Look, there's only one pushback to that intro. And that is, it maybe pumps up the visiting team a little bit too much, gets them going. Everybody always talks about how jump around at Wisconsin is kind of the thing that gets the visiting crowd hype. Like all the visiting players are doing it too, and Alabama players are doing it last year. You're like, this is kind of working against you in a weird sort of way. If we need to dial back our intros, no, we don't need to do that. We instead need to show that to people that don't understand why college football is electric. Or if the aliens came down here and needed some sort of seminar on college football, you're playing Enter Sandman and you're showing Virginia Tech walking into that stadium. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, Drop those aliens at a pregame LSU tailgate. I'll have them turn it around. All right, they don't want none of this. But that's part of it. Is like I like a regional song. I love Entertainment. I'm not saying anything against it, but like Rocky Top in Tennessee. It's hard for Florida to get amped for Rocky Top, right? Louisiana Saturday night. But that being said, I feel like they need to do like one of those like virtual listening parties to the visiting team and just put them in noise canceling headphones and just do that before everybody walks out and they're coming out. They're like, "Why is everybody so hype? We're hearing stuff and they're cold." That's what they got to do is just waterboard them a little bit,
Country Roads, Virginia Tech, or West Virginia rather, not Virginia Tech. Another, region, Dixieland Delight. Although that's Tennessee's song, not Alabama's. But
see,
people forget
Tennessee
that.
Now that they're pretty good, and especially Alabama's going to fall down. They should just start playing Dixieland Delight. Like, look, it's about Tennessee. We just saw Auburn try to do this with the championships. Just start claiming them. Make Alabama fight you on them.
If Alabama lets Dixieland Delight go to Tennessee, you talk about what would it take to muster the money to fire Kalen DeBoer. That might be it. That might be it. What are we talking about again? Oh, yeah, Virginia Tech hosting Diego Pavia
Virginia Tech
and
Vandy,
yes.
Series that they have going on.
Football, yes. I wonder, Will, how much Vanderbilt offense coordinator Tim Beck, I wonder how much he watched Virginia Tech in the South Carolina opener on Sunday afternoon and thought, wait a minute, this Virginia Tech defense is going to start the season by having to chase around Lenore Sellers and then on short rest have to chase around Diego Pavia. I think you got to play into that if you're Tim Beck. You absolutely have to. He had 26 carries in this game to kick off last season. 26. That's a ton. That is borderline Joe Burrow at A&M 2018.
Yep. That is it would be like whatever the inverse of like quiet quitting is. It's almost like quiet firing. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to play 2 SEC teams and their quarterbacks will be Lenore Sellers and Diego Pavia. Like, we should do that to terrorists. We should just put them in at linebacker not knowing the defense and have them just chase around those two guys for consecutive Saturdays while people tweet about it.
Those guys are gonna need IVs, the whole deal after that experience. They will. And look, this game last year, Virginia Tech was a trendy pick to win the ACC, and it was a coming out party for Diego Pavia and company for sure to win that game in Nashville. And I think you've seen a theme play out for Virginia Tech since then. We talked about it last week with the South Carolina game. They can't win close games. They just can't. And this should be a close game. Vandy has been a much better team at winning close games. At least they were last year. And the more I think about it, the more I think Virginia Tech will be in trouble. They did some dumb things in that opener in the South Carolina game where Kyron Drones is throwing these balls in a double coverage in the red zone. Like, man, you are way too experienced to be doing things like that. And some of the mistakes that they made in that game, you're just like, you can't do that. You can't shoot yourself in the foot like that with golden opportunities against a top 15 team like South Carolina.
You can't lose the Beamer Bowl on Beamer Ball. Is that what I would say? Probably.
True. He's getting one special teams touchdown. You have to account for that.
You kick it out of bounds. Please. Why would you even allow it? Anyway.
Come on. 11 points is not going to be enough. It's possible that Virginia Tech is a few dumb plays away from being 1-0 with a win over a top 15 team. And maybe they're going to beat Vandy going away. And we're like, wow, they're really not that far away from being 2-0 with 2 wins against SEC teams to start off the year. Like, that's possible. In the preseason, I had Virginia Tech getting revenge on Vandy in this one. I'm flipping now. Too many costly Virginia Tech mistakes late. Pavia and the Doors prevail 21-20.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. And just to quickly kind of go back to like the scheduling part of it, it's such a nightmare, right? Because it's like, okay, we're going to start with 2 SEC teams. It's kind of pick them against South Carolina. We'll beat Vandy, when you make the schedule. And it's like, okay, well, now we'll be 1-1 against the SEC.
Oh,
we're able to say, get a little bit of recruiting going in. That'll be cool. And they could have never predicted that this would be, what happened. And it's sometimes a little bit oversimplistic to look at series history here. But I look at Vandy and how they've had another year together, with the New Mexico State transplants that they kind of all brought in, Stowers, Pavia. This was really their first meaningful game as a Vanderbilt team together, right? And so I think now they've had the season, the previous season. And of course, it can't be understated how Diego Pavia isn't going to be at 100% health. He's got his overshields up. He's got his enchants on. His wear and tear is going to be at 0. And he's going to be ready to just run through a wall. And yeah, you got to just kind of like I said, just put the earbuds on him for Enter Sandman, because he's going to come in with the kickoff unit if you let him listen to that.
He's going to be juiced. so juiced for this one, man. But yeah, should be a good game. On a very different note, well, kind of on a similar note. If Brent Pry loses this game, I'm not saying he gets fired on Sunday. I'm not saying that this is, you're 0-2, you're getting fired, and this is like some Scott Frost in that extra season that he shouldn't have gotten, and then they still fired him in September sort of way. I am saying that if you think Vandy wins this game, and if you're looking for a wager on the first coach fired this season, that's a place that I would look. A 3-4 start with a midseason firing after a Georgia Tech loss, another mobile quarterback, Haynes King. That could be in play for Virginia Tech if they don't figure things out this week.
Why does this poor team have to do this? Haynes King in Atlanta, Georgia after this still first half of the season.
To be fair, they did all right with Sellers. Like, Sellers did some very Sellers things in that game, but it wasn't like they scored 45 points. They held them to 24 points, and obviously 7 of those were a special teams touchdown. Now, they did have 7 wiped off the board with the Nick Harbor, what is actually a catch, so you could play that card as well. But Virginia Tech wasn't bad defensively, so it's not like you saw them against a mobile quarterback and you're thinking, oh my God, this is what Alabama struggled with, or this is like what last year with LSU, what they struggled with, or something like that, where it's just an obvious Achilles heel. So I don't want to necessarily go there just yet, like it's an automatic loss for them, but they could be staring at that 3-4 if they're unable to win a game like this, and losing home to Vandy, and especially when you're the coach that just can't win close games. If they lose a close game here, it'd be 1-14 in games decided by 10 points or less.
Oh my gosh. Connor,
so
I could see you at 50 one day, just walking away and being like, hey, I've been keeping this Iowa notebook for my own good. I've been betting on head coach firing futures this whole time. I got all these notes. Nobody has me. I have $10 million in the bank, and I'm just going to take it home. And you would just walk off into some Nebraska cornfield, and we'd never hear from you again. You get the biggest lawnmower. Anyway.
Beatrice is lovely this time of year. It really is. Got a lot of fine places in Nebraska.
I'm on to you.
We'll get back one day. On a different note, though. Okay, so this, if it goes in that direction, and this is this disaster start for Virginia Tech, I would have to explain on a bunch of different places why, as much as I think he loves Blacksburg, I don't think Shane Beamer is returning there to be in his father's shadow and take that job. So I'd like to get out ahead of that right now before this becomes a thing. My wild card to get that job, if it opens up, if Virginia Tech opens up, is Butch Jones. Big Saturday ahead for Butch Jones.
He's back like he never left.
He's back facing an SEC team for the first time since he was fired at Tennessee. He's facing Arkansas this weekend. First ever matchup between Arkansas and Arkansas State. How about that? Really, really cool that state is getting to have that. But if Butch puts together another 8-win season, Virginia Tech's AD, Whit Babcock, that is his name, right? Google that real quick for me. Whit Babcock. I don't want to be wrong about that, about such a convincing name. Whit Babcock. That's not made up. Real name.
Okay. Yeah, it's a real person. Athletic director of Virginia Tech. He's kind of swagging.
Just didn't have that written down. I was like, I'll remember that name. I'm not going to mess that name on there. He was the AD who promoted Butch at Cincinnati. So there's obviously a tie in there. I remember even 10 years ago, they're like, would Butch Jones leave Tennessee for Virginia Tech? Would he do that to replace Frank Beamer? Is this something that could actually happen? Butch has quietly built himself back up to respectability. Okay. And he's no longer the laughingstock that he was at Tennessee. Very different situation at Tennessee than what he would be walking into at Virginia Tech. Real ones know that Jalen Rayner. See, we mess up with the Jalen's. Once we get
There's too many Jalen's. Stop naming those kids Jalen, Jaden.
Yeah, they're everywhere. It's an epidemic. Jalen Rayner is legit. If he gives that Arkansas defense some problems, look at the way that Butch Jones is being talked about on the internet airwaves on Saturday. And just keep that in mind, and keep that in mind for this job. I know we're getting out ahead of this, but I just want that on record right now as we sit here and breathe on the first Wednesday of September, that Butch Jones is my dark horse to get the Virginia Tech job.
Of course. And again, guys, this is why you're here, because we're giving you the preview. And furthermore, you hit on this. Arkansas State's never played Arkansas. That means Arkansas State and Butch Jones have the chance to do the funniest thing ever, which is open up with a winning record against Arkansas if they win this weekend. Not that I think it's going to be happen, but you've kind of sold me on this game as well. And I just wanted to note too, there's no reason why Shane Beamer would leave South Carolina for Virginia Tech. And I'll tell you why, because he has not struggled to get those kids from the DMV. Nick Harbor was one of them. So I think that his connections of that area can still help you just as much as South Carolina.
Do you think South Carolina fans have watched the Nick Harbor touchdown 50 times since it happened on Sunday? Is that low? 60? 70?
That's
Maybe.
my guy, man. You know me. I'll die with that stock, so I'm excited that they got him going early.
God, it looked good. It was really, really good. But yeah, you came for the Vandy Virginia Tech preview. You stayed, hopefully, for the don't sleep on Butch Jones getting another power conference job conversation. That's where we're at. All right, well, lock of the week. We're 0-1. Washington won by 3 scores, but did not cover minus 21.5. Logic was accurate. Head was in the right place. Just didn't ultimately get the job done. Play here, play there. I gave us a 58% for that pick. I gave a whole lot of points in that one. I'm not giving as many points this week. In fact, I'm taking those points. Charlotte plus 14 at home against the fighting Bill Belichick's in North Carolina.
And this is great because you just talked about NFL defensive coordinators coming up and down the ranks. Famed NFL defensive coordinator Steve Belichick here, so.
Good call. Yeah. I did not see anything on Monday night that makes me think Steve Belichick will be in the same conversations as Matt Patricia and Wink Martindale. Did not think that.
That's fair. It's certainly not as bad. I mean, I've never seen, this is why these standalone games could be so funny because, 2 drives in, we were photoshopping the Alabama A on Bill Belichick. And then 3 drives later, it was like, this old man he's senile. Get him off the sidelines. He's washed.
The balloons in the post-game press conference. I've never seen that, Will. I've been to many a post-game press conference, very weird situations that I don't really know what to expect. And I have never seen the balloons. Like it was assumed it was going to be this coronation moment. And God bless TCU's social media team. Oh my God.
What a nightmare of a team to see. That social media team at TCU, they never lost the national championship edge.
Oh, they emptied the clip in every possible way. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So good. But yeah, Charlotte plus 14 in this game because why would you bet on Bill Belichick? If the only thing that could make this bet go horribly wrong, and I might regret this, Max Johnson. He had that moment with his brother, Jake Johnson, throwing him a touchdown in the opener, comes in for Gio Lopez. They did look better. That's not saying much because they just couldn't have looked worse without him. But Max Johnson, maybe he's got a little bit of juice left in the tank. He's in like year 7 of college or something no, his first start was the shoe, the shoe throwing, the Marco Wilson shoe throw.
I was like, was it that or was it the UCLA? No, he had been.
That
around.
Was the first start because that was 2020, and then 21 was him is debuting as QB1 at LSU.
So he sure started in the first Trump administration then, didn't he? That guy has been around for so long, and I love watching him play. He's a weird left-handed 6'6" guy. I joked about, his dad, Big Bad Brad Johnson, such a fun follow on social media, and it's like, look, Brad Johnson could work in accounting. That's not that Chad of a name, but Max Johnson, he's only got a couple options in life, and slinging a football is one of them.
I think the Biden had won the election, but not sworn in yet. So that's a murky territory when we talk about presidential administrations and when something happened. That's always a gray area. I tend to go by sworn in date with some of these when I'm bringing up Gerald Ford and Reagan and whatnot. So just didn't want to make sure that we're on the record being correct there on the timeline of it. But you're exactly right. Yeah, Max Johnson. If Max Johnson had been on the winning side of this, he would have been my lad of the week. He is not my lad of the week, but for the sake of lock of the week, I hope that he doesn't have the most effective day and that Charlotte covers plus 14. All right, let's kick it to Doug. I like getting different perspectives on the show. I really do. And every once in a while, it's kind of fun to get into a little bit of a back and forth. Doug and I have been able to do that on his show and love being able to have him on here. We had him on here, what was it, like summer going into last season. And so it's great to talk about a lot of different, Northern related things. We disagree about all things like LSU and Penn State and whatnot, but talked about some of the non-conference scheduling stuff that frustrates me with the Big Ten. Talk about as well, kind of redoing the Alabama hire with Kalen DeBoer, what would have been a better fit and whatnot. So a lot of different things that we dig into. Great conversation. So here is Doug Lesmerises. now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Doug Lesmerises. Doug, can we get let's get a vibe check, because I need a vibe check from you as the man who oversees the North, the man who knows Northern football extremely well. Outside of Ohio State and Notre Dame, it kind of felt like the North was in hibernation in week 1. So just give me an overall assessment of where Northern football is at after 1 week.
So I do think, for instance, a year ago, week 1 and 2, Oregon was kind of scuffling through some things, almost lost to Boise State last year and had offensive line concerns. So Oregon took care of business, and Penn State's afraid to schedule teams in the non-conference. So they played Nevada, but Penn State took care of business. Right. And I think Illinois did what it needed to do. And I think Iowa was functional. And Minnesota, Drake Lindsay looked pretty good as a first-time starting quarterback. It's things like that. I think so. I don't know that anybody like Iowa State, I think, is actually. I really thought Iowa State might fall off. I think to play the way they did in Ireland, and then you saw Kansas State came back and almost lost its return game, but Iowa State dominated its return game. Now they're going into Cy-Hawk against Iowa. I think Iowa State looks in really good shape. I think Utah looked really good. So I'm not, Again, Notre Dame and Ohio State are the headliners there, but I thought it was some kind of under the radar, taking care of business situations, which you can never take for granted, right? I mean, that's how we do it, man. You never take a win for granted. Ask Alabama.
I wish this is true. Good Lord, this is true. I will get to Alabama in a second with you. There are some things, though, that with scheduling that we know are about to change with college football. The SEC going to the 9-game conference schedule. We feel like we're about to embark on a new era of the sport once this new playoff is rolled out. And I vowed to the people, I'm sick of talking about the playoff. I'm sick of talking about all this stuff. I do just want to see, now that the SEC has gotten to this place, I want to get back to a place where the Big Ten can schedule non-conference games, and it's not in hibernation week 1. Like Curt Cignetti, he comes up with this point. He's like, hey, you know what? We're going to start scheduling non-conference like Alabama, which was a really bad point to make when we talk about Alabama's non-conference schedule, because they actually beefed it up and they actually loaded up with non-conference play. Not that it's going to do them any favors over the course of the next few years, maybe. But I want to get to this place where everyone feels like they can schedule non-conference games, and the Big Ten doesn't feel like it can do that. And that kind of sucks. That's not good for the sport.
I do actually think there's I just think 2 Big Ten teams that are the problem, and they get most of the attention with lack of non-conference scheduling. And it is Indiana and it is Penn State.
Correct.
And so Indiana, now the one thing with Indiana is Indiana schedules like a team that's trying to go 6-6 and make a bowl.
Been saying this forever.
So nobody complains that Rutgers doesn't schedule anybody, although Rutgers actually played Virginia Tech last year, right? So, but all of a sudden, Indiana went from we're trying to go 6-6 to we're in the playoff, and so their circumstances changed. But if you believe, but it's not just Cignetti, because it's also the dedication to resources they've invested. That was a big story of Indiana last year. They think they can keep this going. So then I think to double down with some of the scheduling decisions they've made since then, if you are going to be better than what you are, then you got to schedule better. So that's one thing. And then Penn State just has this reputation of doing this. Now they had a home and home from West Virginia. The second part of that was last year. They have one coming up with Syracuse. I like that they're playing some of the Northeast schools. I think Penn State and Pitt should play on a regular basis. They don't. They've never done the SEC thing, really. They had the Auburn series a couple years ago, but that's it. And so if Penn State wants to get respect and be at the Ohio State level and be at the Alabama and Georgia level, then they've got to do it. So, and maybe this is your point, Mr. O'Gara, the SEC goes to 9 and says you've got to have a P4 game as your 10th. The Big Ten has to go to that too.
No question.
Whatever happened, I don't know if the Big Ten cajoled, embarrassed, poked, agreed. It maybe feels like you would know this better than me. Maybe Greg Sankey probably wanted to get to 9 anyway. TV wanted it. TV runs everything. But this is what the Big Ten wanted. But now the SEC should absolutely lean on the Big Ten to say, well, now you've got to mandate the 10th Power 4. And again, Oregon's playing Oklahoma State this week. Now, Oregon should probably play somebody even better than that. I get it. But it's Indiana and Penn State who are the problem. And if you look forward, and we did this, if you look forward at the Big Ten schedules that are scheduled for the next 5 years, Nebraska has, I think, 2 years in there where they have all 3 non-conference games scheduled and none are against a P4. They'd be affected, so they'd have to adjust. Penn State would have to adjust a couple years, and Indiana would have to adjust every single year because there's no P4 team to be found anywhere on the non-conference schedule in the next 5 years, and the Big Ten should make them change that.
Good. Do it. They do it in college basketball within a few months. You can do this in college football, and you can even play a team in your conference and just call it a non-conference game. The ACC does that all the time. The ACC is probably going to have to do that when they are pushed into the 9-game conference schedule and they have the odd number of teams, and they're going to be figuring out what in the world to do with that. So, it is interesting because it establishes conversations, and it's what, the SEC can hang its hat on that because of how it's done in non-conference play in a lot of these matchups. And even last year, when it's a down year for the SEC, you can still come back to, well, they did this, this, and this against power conference opponents in non-conference play. Are you of the mindset right now that the Big Ten is A, deeper than the SEC, B, just as deep as the SEC, or C, not as deep as the SEC?
I think the Big Ten is deeper than I've ever seen it. This is my 21st year being around Big Ten football. I think there are 3 should make the playoff teams in the Big Ten, and Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. I think there are 8 could make the playoff teams in the Big Ten. And somebody I think will come out of there, whether it's Illinois or Iowa or Michigan or Washington or Minnesota or Nebraska, right? I mean, I think there's some good quarterbacks. That often has not been the case in the Big Ten. There's better coaching in the Big Ten. There's more resources invested. In the preseason was going through, and we'll get to Bama. I've been out on Bama from the jump. I wasn't going anywhere close to Bama as a playoff team this year. And so I said, who's my third playoff team? And third in the SEC. I was like, who's my third? And at one point it was LSU, and I was like, I can't do it. I know where you are in LSU. You convinced me for like a month, and then I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to be part of this. Now they played great, so I probably would get back to that. But I didn't know where to go, honestly, because it's kind of a morass, right? Beyond, if you're out on Bama, and then once you get beyond Texas, Georgia, and probably LSU, I don't know how you're figuring out Tennessee, South Carolina, like Florida, is Blagway going to be healthy? All that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't sit here and pretend to say the Big Ten is deeper, but I 100% would say they're as deep. And if we want to go through and like pretend we're doing a Big Ten SEC challenge and do the matchups and stuff, I think it'd be pretty good. I think it'd be a really good matchup in comparison.
I think it'd be pretty good too. I'd still probably take the SEC's depth a little bit more so. Vegas with the odds right now, like take what you will with national title odds, especially after week 1. Like you
can't go by those. You can't go by Vegas because it's public perception. And you go through it again. It's like if you're going, I think you could get like 9 or 10 SEC teams in national title odds before you get to the 4th Big Ten team. And I don't think that's reflective of actual on-field ability or performance.
Oklahoma hosting Michigan will be big for that. Really big.
Agreed. I agree that's going to be big. But like I just can't live in a world where it's like, well, Illinois would be the 11th best team in the SEC. That's not reflective of reality. It might be reflective of Vegas odds. But Texas, Ohio State certainly mattered in that conversation. And Oklahoma, Michigan absolutely will matter in that conversation. And I wouldn't have thought it before the season. So will Wisconsin, Alabama in week 3.
Wisconsin going to be on a second-string quarterback? Will it matter? I don't know.
We'll Is Danny O'Neal better than Ty Simpson anyway? I don't know.
Good Lord.
Will Bama be on a second-string quarterback?
Fair question. Let's talk about Bama. Because the first thing that actually got us speaking to one another on social media was Nick Saban not being at Bama and how that was ultimately going to it was going to result in the SEC fading into a very different era. And Alabama is certainly fading into a different era. Like that is cemented. When you're watching this play out week 1 and you're seeing Bama just get whipped by Florida State in every possible way of that football game, did it feel satisfying for you knowing that was your original stance? Or is it more so like, oh, wait, I just watched Kalen DeBoer do this, and this at Washington. I know how good he was at Indiana. And he's not at Bama. Like, what side are we defending here with the Bama fall from grace?
I don't know. I was 100% right about the whole thing. It was never the right hire. It was a bad cultural fit. I don't know why anybody would have thought otherwise. It's Rich Rodriguez at Michigan. It doesn't mean he's a terrible coach. It means he's a terrible fit for that job, and it's over. It's over. And you know this, but I'm not an expert on this stuff. But how can you have former Bama players saying the things they're saying this week and believe that it can be saved? It's done. And so he'll go get another job somewhere else. But why Alabama ever thought that a guy from South Dakota who had never coached more south than Carbondale, Illinois in his life and as an offensive guy was the right guy to take over for Nick Saban. It was a misfire on every level. And so you've gutted that program. I said on social media this week, I think there's a more than 0% chance that Nick Saban finishes this season as the head coach of Alabama. And people are like, why would he do that to his legacy? His legacy is secure. He's the greatest coach in college football history. And I know it's a $63 million buyout or whatever it is. But if they boot him, what if Nick Saban pays it? Nick Saban says, what do you need? I'll write a check. I'll take over for the last 8 games, start the search. I can't live like this. I can't let this happen. It's over. Tell me it's not over.
Miss Terry would be more likely to write that check than Nick Saban because she can't watch him anymore, and she would have access to the funds.
They need saving. Hey, they need saving. This program needs saving. Does it not?
Okay. It does. Like I am more so a DeBoer defender. I have been the one pointing to the fact that look, this guy's 15-3 against AP top 25 teams. He's 6-1 against AP top 10. Like, just get to 10-2 and get to the playoff and trust that he can win a big time game. Like, that to me is really important in this era of college football. And as long as he's recruiting, which he's recruiting really well. And he has gotten guys in that building that are supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. That was the knock. And so to your point, you're saying like it's a bad cultural fit. Culture from the talent standpoint hasn't been the problem. Culture from the DNA of who Bama was before and who Bama aspires to still be is the bigger problem. And I will agree with you on that standpoint. But like, we do this all the time. Like, Will Muschamp couldn't have been more Southern. And Will Muschamp was a terrible head coach in the Southeastern Conference. Terrible. So like, who would have been let's just use hindsight as 2020 here. Who would have been your guy that you would have looked at and said, that can actually work. This guy can succeed Nick Saban?
Dan Lanning, right? So
that's the right answer.
And we know, and then this was a point made by somebody else around Ohio State this week that just when Urban Meyer retired, Ohio State had Ryan Day, and they went that way, and he was ready to go. When Brian Kelly left, Notre Dame had Marcus Freeman, and they went that way, and he was ready to go. I think there's a little bit of a failure here for Bama that there wasn't somebody. Now, maybe the issue is that the obvious guy, right? If Nick Saban had retired 10 years earlier, it's Kirby Smart, right? You had the guy. You developed the guy in the building. And then everybody else, right? Everybody else that maybe could have been the next. Jeremy Pruitt was tearing it up at Tennessee, right? Or like maybe he comes back and does. But was there, I'll ask you, who was the obvious guy from the Saban tree to be like this guy? Because you're not looking for a change. You want to keep it going. Ohio State wasn't looking for a change. They had a guy in the building who they thought could build off the Urban Meyer era. Why didn't Bama have that? Or who would have been the guy out in the world with Bama roots who had coached under Saban, who could have been, who coached under Nick Saban? Kurt Cignetti, who could have come in and done that. Who was the obvious guy?
Those two guys don't like each other. Can I get that take out there? They don't like each other.
You don't want Kurt Cignetti in Tuscaloosa? Okay.
No, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm
But who is
I would not. I think Lane. Dan Lanning is the correct answer to your point.
Yeah.
I think Lane wouldn't have been hired by Greg Byrne. That would not, because this was always going to be the hire that Greg Byrne's entire reputation was going to be staked on. And that's why the $63 million, he's not paying that this year to bail on his guy, no matter how bad this turns out, unless they're 2-10 and you've just got guys, MFing DeBoer at every press conference. But Lane, in hindsight, if we're trying to, factor in who understands Alabama, who could have been the person that's going to, even if the talent isn't necessarily at the level that it was at under Saban, like who's the person that, could truly understand this job and just kind of roll with it because he's seen everything at this point.
Sure.
Like, you're not going to fluster Lane. He's got booted by the Raiders, got booted by USC. Like, you're not going to humiliate him in the same sort of way that it feels like DeBoer is being humiliated right now.
Yeah.
I think Lane would have been the guy to understand that. That is hindsight is 2020. Lanning would have been my first choice, and I think DeBoer was still like it at the time, like still a good hire, but it's very clearly not working out, and the cultural fit is very much being used against him.
Yeah, and I up here I always say this. For instance, Ohio State can't only hire coaches from Ohio. Now, as it turned out, Woody Hayes is from Ohio, and Jim Tressel's from Ohio, and Urban Meyer's from Ohio. But you can't limit yourself to that. It can't be limiting. But cultural fit matters. I believe it. And that you can be a great coach in this school and a great coach in this school, and you won't be a great coach at that school.
Agreed.
Now, son of the North, Nick Saban. All right. Why? The guy's from West Virginia. He goes to Kent State. He coaches at Toledo. He coaches for the Cleveland Browns. He coaches for Michigan State. What made him a cultural fit at LSU? Nothing, except he's the greatest coach in college football history. But then once Bama went and got him, you knew the guy understood the SEC and could get this done. You just didn't have any proof of that with Kalen DeBoer. And even that the resume, I mean, it's, Washington was a great team. They did a great job with that. Michael Penix and Rome Odunze and some of the other guys you had on that team, it's like there's some rare dudes there. But he had won other places. But if you would have said 5 years earlier, who's going to be the next coach at Alabama? And like when Kalen DeBoer was at Fresno State or whatever, it would have been like, what are you even talking about, right? So it felt like it was such a very much a hire of the moment, that it like there wasn't as much backing behind it. And it is not to say he's not a good coach. It's just kind of stunning to me that this is even happening. And so you're a defender. I get it. I'm 0% shocked that this is where this has gone.
Did I just hear you claim West Virginia as the Norths?
Oh, heck yeah. We claim West Virginia. Yeah,
what?
absolutely.
Wait a minute.
No.
It snows.
They have mountains. It snows.
I have heard Randy Moss speak way too much to say that is a northern state.
Morgantown's 35 miles from Pittsburgh. So like where Morgantown is, and I get it, and I've had this discussion with West Virginia people who know they have been claimed by the North. It depends where you are. But like we got to draw a line somewhere. But if West Virginia defines itself through its rivalry with Pitt, right? And I do think West Virginia has things in common with Cincinnati, right? So West Virginia has some. So I'm comfortable with it. You got to draw a line somewhere. But yeah, we call Nick Saban a son of the North. Absolutely.
Is my guy Paul Feinbaum ducking you?
I was on with the backup host in the off season, and I said like, I'm here, and they said like, we'll get you on, and it hasn't happened. But I'm ready when it does.
That's the problem. You can't troll him on your first appearance. What are you doing?
I'm definitely going to troll. This is why I have my glasses downstairs. I was him for Halloween. So, I mean, it's not good. It's probably never going to happen. And I've come to grips with that. But it's also because like there's too many things that I say and too many things that the North is doing well in football right now. I'm too right to be on Feinbaum. You are man enough to handle it. Maybe he's not. And the guy's the best there is at what he does. He's far better than me at this. But I'm waiting for the call, brother.
It'll happen.
I would love it. I'd love it.
I've told you before, like I'll do what I can to see if there's anything that can be done on southern soil to make sure that you, Doug Lesmerises, are a fixture on the Paul Feinbaum show. How much right now, how much would you pay for the opportunity? We're recording this on Tuesday for the opportunity to go on Feinbaum and host and just listen to callers with everything that's been said about Arch and everything that was said about Alabama in the first part of this week. How much would you pay to sit in Paul's chair, or maybe just sit next to Paul if this were some sort of like Make-A-Wish situation or something like Cameo? Like, would you pay
This is it. This is it for me. I'm going out. This is all I want, Paul. I mean, that is one thing too, because like for instance on our show, and I think we take emails from people, we take messages from people, we read them. We don't take the live callers. Angry college football fans, man, they are both wonderful and a lot. So I do admire his ability to get through that. But this is also one of those things. Listen, college football fans are all the same, no matter where they're from. They love their team. They love their team. And so if you get mad that somebody else loves their team, the same way you love your team. It's just a different team. We're more alike than we are different. But it's time for Bama fans to be mad. They've had a great run. Like, it's their turn to be angry. Everybody else has been mad for 2 decades about Bama kicking their butt. So no offense, but I'm not feeling sorry for Bama fans this week, but man, it would be a lot to handle.
I came away from Ohio State, Texas, thinking that those two teams were really, really similar. And Ohio State, I picked Ohio State to win, and they kind of looked the way that I thought that they would. Like, I think they're teams who can win a championship with those defenses. Like, there's no question in my mind. It's just going to be whether or not those new starting quarterbacks are able to progress enough. And if they're a liability down the stretch, if they're able to really gain the valuable experience that they're going to get. What was the sense that you got watching those two teams, besides just wanting to make sure that Paul and everyone else has to cram it when it comes to all things Arch Manning?
I mean, I picked Texas. So the big question up here was, I think the number one thing was Matt Patricia taking over for Jim Knowles as a defensive coordinator, had not been in college football in a very, very, very long time. Was he just riding Bill Belichick's coattails, right? He did not succeed as a head coach with the Detroit Lions, and he kind of had bounced around after that. After that North Carolina performance, I think Bill Belichick was riding Matt Patricia's coattails. Right? It's like the headline is New England Patriots Super Bowl winning defensive guru takes college football by storm. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick implodes in first game. Matt Patricia coached a great game. And so that was the question. And it's also a lot of credit to especially that secondary that was able to execute his game plan. Steve Sarkisian talked about it after the game. They disguised coverages. Arch Manning wasn't sure what he was seeing. Caleb Downs especially, and Alabama fans certainly know this, brain like a computer. As smart of a defensive player in college football, I think, that you will ever see. They had a lot of other young guys, Jalen McClain at safety, Jermaine Matthews at corner, who had a pick, who had not been in those situations before and also played great. So that was the test. That was the test against Arch. Could Ohio State do that? And so that idea, and then Ryan Day after the fact said sort of like the game plan was, don't put too much on Julian Sayan's shoulders. Also, thank you, Alabama, in his first start, and see if they can win it this way. And they did. So, for instance, CJ Carr for Notre Dame at the end against Miami showed some stuff in the second half because Notre Dame was down and they needed him to do that. And I think he showed a lot. Julian Sayin didn't have to do that. So there's a lot more out there for him. But I think for Ohio State fans, the main thing was they lost so many great defensive players to the NFL, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau and Denzel Burke and Cody Simon and everybody. Could Patricia call it, and could the defense execute it? And the fact that that did happen, because it's not like Arch stinks, right? It's not like, oh, everyone thought Arch Manning was great. He was a Heisman favorite. Turns out he's terrible. That's not the answer to that question. The answer to the question is he was a young quarterback, and that defense was really good, and the defensive plan was really good. So I think that's a really big credit for Ohio State. And they're going to play some real quarterbacks this year. Damon Williams at Washington in week 5, right? They're going to play Luke Altmaier from Illinois, Drew Aller from Penn State, Bryce Underwood, the true freshman at Michigan, so Minnesota and Drake Lindsey. Sometimes in the Big Ten, you go through a season and there's no quarterback that threatens you. I think there's some good quarterbacks on their schedule that they could do that to Arch, I think bodes well.
Indiana last year, with the exception of facing Will Howard against Ohio State in the regular season. That was all they saw, and they were better for it. They certainly were. What's James Franklin's excuse going to be when Penn State loses to Ohio State, doesn't win a Big Ten championship, and doesn't play in a national championship?
Yeah, I mean, first question is like, what happens if they don't beat Oregon this month? Like that would be so. Like we've been assuming sort of that big home win. I think it'll be a whiteout at night against Oregon. You don't have to beat your rival to win a national championship. So the first part of the question is, what's the I mean, Ohio State proved it. So I think there's a lot of possible similarities between Ohio State still can't beat Michigan, and they won a national title. James Franklin has one win against Ohio State. He doesn't have to beat Ohio State in Ohio Stadium to win the national title. That's like a lot of us. I ran a preseason Big Ten poll. Certainly what I picked. I think a lot of people did. Penn State loses to Ohio State in the regular season. They rematch in the Big Ten title game, and Penn State on the neutral site in Indy wins. So I think that's possible. Has James Franklin ever had a team that was more talented than Ohio State? I think the answer is probably no, right? Because like it's Ohio State. So he has one win against Ohio State, but he's never had the better roster. I think this year he might. Now, Ohio State looked pretty darn good. They had some young guys. Arvell Reese, who was first-time starter at linebacker, looked awesome, right? They have some young dudes. But Penn State's experience and their talent, like this obviously is their year. So I don't know. How many programs are there that are like, that's it? You had a chance to win the national championship and you didn't do it. Like, we're done. Like, is Penn State that kind of program? They're probably right on the border. And probably the answer is they want to be that kind of program. But then it's like, well, if you want to be, this is like a catch-22. If you want to be the program you want to be, do you have to move on from James Franklin if he doesn't win the national championship this year? Because that's what Penn State demands. Or is it like, you know what? This is a really good team that wins 10 games every year and is in the mix. Man, what are you going to do? I don't know what the answer is. There's no excuse. They don't have, the only thing holding them back is their past. There's nothing on the field right now. Two great coordinators, veteran quarterback, great running back tandem, really good offensive line. The transfer receivers all played well in week one. Defensive identity. There's nothing they're lacking. So it depends. It's more about you, Connor, right? It's what is the standard that you are holding Penn State to? Because there's no answer. There's no excuse. They have everything you need. And then you just decide, well, they only made it to the semifinals. That's a failure. They went 12-1, but lost in the first round. That's a failure. They lost in the national championship game. That's a failure. It's about how you perceive it, because there is no excuse when it comes to the football.
2017, they were still really talented. They had pre-draft Saquon. They had Trace McSorley coming back. Like, they still had my guy Joe Moorhead dialing up looks in that offense. And I realized they lost some guys from that Big Ten championship team. There's no doubt about it. Like, they still had plenty of talent on that team. And I'm just coming back to that going, man, I don't know if that's a fair thing to say about them. Like, I don't know. For me, it's, you've been there long enough. You're past the Sandusky stuff. There's been more than enough time to be able to say, we are Penn State. This is the best atmosphere in college football if you're James Franklin. It shouldn't be every single time, well, you know what, they just have more talent than us. At a certain point, that's not good enough anymore. It's just not.
I don't know. I don't disagree with you. They beat Penn State in 2016 and lost by a point the next 2 years in games they led, and Ohio State came back in the fourth quarter.
Got one lucky bounce on a blocked field goal to win that game in 2016.
For sure. 30, like Dwayne Haskins led a rally in 2018. JT Barrett led a rally in 2017. Like, it's a high bar. Like, Ohio State's a high bar. But I do think, for instance, the one thing that I think is meaningful in discussions like this, and I've used it, for instance, in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, is like, for instance, as good as Saban was, Auburn still got him a couple times. Auburn in the Saban era didn't go, oh, well, 17-1 against us. It's Saban. What are you going to do? Like, Auburn still got him. I don't know what Saban's record was against Auburn, but Auburn got him 4 or 5 times, right? So, like,
3, 4?
You
4.
You gotta get them every now and then, right? Because the point is, maybe if you don't have the better roster, you still got to get them every now and then. And so, that's like, true. I don't think any of this is unfair. It's more about the question asker, but they're not lacking anything. So this is as good as it's been. Even if you would say, hey, there's times they should have won more before, this is as good as it's been. And they know that. And they went out and did what they, to get Trevor Pena that late in the portal from Syracuse, right? They know what's up. So they're trying to put the cherry on top of the sundae. So this is it.
All right. So if I give you the choice, Penn State or LSU to win a national title, who are you going with?
Like, I can't. I mean, what am I? I'm not getting off the horse midstream. Like, the people are trying to get me to have Garrett Nussmeier conversations, and I'm like, I'm not the person to have this conversation with. I was on a Cleveland radio station, and like, they're already talking about if the Browns get the #1 pick, and they're asking me about Garrett Nussmeier, and I was like, you have to ask someone else. I am not the person to ask this question. So I'll tell them. I'll send them your number, man, because I mean, there's like Brian Kelly residue as part of this. Like, am I gonna, as much whatever people in the South say about James Franklin, people up here are saying about Brian Kelly, right? But
Fair.
in James Franklin's defense, he's never done a fake accent to try to get a recruit. So it's just like I'm not gonna get there. As I poke fun at Georgia a lot, but I get Georgia. Like, I don't. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, I don't know if Kirby Smart's got it. I get it. I understand that, right? I don't get LSU. And the thing about LSU, and everybody knows this, is LSU is either winning a national title or being incredibly disappointing. So, for instance, we make a lot of comparisons between LSU and Ohio State. Ohio State's always consistent. Ohio State never falls off. Ohio State's never like 7-5. But LSU has more recent national titles than Ohio State does. So I'm always like, well, for a fan base, what would you rather be? Would you rather be always in the mix, but not quite as over the top as many times? Or would you rather be like LSU, that it's like, well, we won this one with Les Miles, but then we kind of disappeared and like people were disappointed. And then I can't get there. So of course I'm taking Penn State, and I'm not even going to apologize for it. I'm not going to apologize for it. They're probably similar in a lot of ways, except LSU has a bunch of the recent national titles that Penn State doesn't. But I'm just, come on. I'm not going to, what am I going to crowd in? I'm going to jump off the Penn State horse and be like, hey, Connor, can I get on the back of your LSU horse? I'm not doing that at this point.
They're really similar, except for the whole like national title thing. Like LSU's got three of those with three different coaches. They're totally the same. They're exactly the same. Okay, so for people who don't know this, I went on your show and we came up with an LSU bet. And it was, you're already cooked. Like, this is not going to end well.
Not looking good.
Like, so the bet was, and there's no middle for this bet. You proposed this, and you said that you win the bet if LSU starts 3-3, and I win the bet if LSU makes it to the SEC championship. So there's like if LSU starts off 5-1 but doesn't make it to the SEC championship, then just nobody wins the bet.
Right.
So I am like you. I don't know what my odds would be in Vegas, but did we decide on what you would have to say about me? Like the South knows football or something like that, or this Yankee who lives kind of in the South, but not really because it's Orlando. Like he knows football. Like, did we come up with something for you to say that just shines a light on my football knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, you can probably write the script and I'll just repeat it. So I'm hoping for the middle now. I'm rooting for Georgia and Texas because I know Bama's going to be. I don't know who else in the SEC is going to jump up. But I will tell you, like, we did that show, and like 3 weeks later, we did a round of playoff predictions, and I had LSU in the playoff. And the minute it came out of my mouth, it was like you had seeped into my brain. But I was like, I already made this 3-3 bet. Now I'm picking them for the playoff. Picking LSU to make the playoff made me question my very existence. So I'm just going to be out. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'd rather be wrong than try to come back around on this thing and ride with Brian Kelly.
I wish I could have influenced you when you said that Lenore Sellers was overrated and that Avery Johnson was just as good as him. I wish I could have come back at that time when you guys said that, because then I would have been like, oh, we're in peak off season mode right now.
I already saw like somebody's tweet was like Lenore Sellers versus Garrett Nussmeier in whatever week is like going to be for the Heisman Trophy. And I was like, oh my God, I
won't go there.
I can't live in this world, but also it might be right. Also, Kansas State, just less than the sum of its parts. Like that week 0 game, I was like, I think Kansas State is probably significantly better than Iowa State everywhere, and Iowa State beat them. So I don't know what's happening at Kansas State, but Rocco Becht's pretty good. I should have banked more on Rocco Becht, which I also was aggravated that people were underrating him. But yeah, that Lenore Sellers, Avery Johnson comparison is not going my way either.
We all have some that we get wrong. Last year was Georgia, me getting the Georgia pick wrong, and you won our bet with that. So I'll get you out of here on this, a chance to look smart. National championship. Do you have a preseason pick? And I'll even give you the chance if you want to tweak the preseason pick, and maybe you had Texas or something like that, and then you could change it post week 1. Like, what do you want to get on the record with?
Well, my national champion preseason pick already lost because I picked Notre Dame. Because I liked Notre Dame had so many defensive guys hurt last year that I just thought like they had and you saw like Bubakar Traore like look really good against Miami. It's like that guy was hurt last year. Jeremiah Love, who they didn't use enough in the first game. I thought the offense, they lost 3 transfers on the offensive line, but it's because their offensive line was so good, there was no room for those guys to play. I think the skill positions have improved there, and I thought that CJ Carr would improve over the course of the year. I'm not out on Notre Dame. I'm much more in on Miami. I think that result has more to do with Miami than it does with Notre Dame. And I thought that Miami was so physical on both sides of the ball. Everybody knows this. I thought Miami looked great. Let me ask you a question as I answer my question. The fact that Ohio State's the defending national champion and then beat number 1 and looks like it still has room to grow, a quarterback who's going to grow more, right? A defense that looks pretty solid. We were asking on our show, is Ohio State the team to beat now? And I had written a column on our new Substack about the idea of, if anybody's going to be the new Bama, would it be Ohio State in this era? And that to me, to win the national championship and follow it up by beating number 1 that's like a Saban thing to do, because Saban would always play that week 1 game against a top 20 team. And now Ohio State didn't hammer them. Saban would usually hammer them. I might be back around on show me who's going to beat Ohio State. I was not there in the preseason. Actually, my preseason prediction was rematches of both semifinals. I had Texas, Ohio State, and Penn State, Notre Dame in the 2 semifinals by accident. I'm not out on any of those 3, but I might be more in on Ohio State. And I'm on alert for Miami. Always respect Georgia's talent, and the Kirby Smart's a great coach. But did that do anything for you from an Ohio State perspective, watching them beat Texas?
I think they were who I thought they would be. I think that it's still going to be really tough to repeat. I think in this day and age, it is a grind with the amount of games you're being asked to play. And last year, Ohio State had the talent to be able to recalibrate. And maybe that's just going to be how it is every year. Sark has talked about how teams aren't going to go undefeated anymore. And it's just kind of going to be, can you get there? Can you be healthy enough? Can you build this team the right way? And I even think watching that Notre Dame Miami game, Marcus Freeman was getting into his head a little bit too much with the Jeremiah Love thing and wanting to preserve him as much as possible. And he's like, hey, we're going to need this guy for a run. We can't, I know we haven't given him a ton of carries before, and we're going to still just try and, watch his workload and make sure that he's healthy, because he wasn't healthy even going into the playoff. And if he hurdles every guy like he did all last year and in that first game, he's not going to be healthy. But I think it's such a difficult thing to sit here and predict. I'll just say after week 1, I feel better about my LSU pick. I think it's gonna be tough.
You and Lee Corso. You and Lee Corso. Did you talk to Lee Corso too? Are you in his head?
Lives 11 miles from me.
Oh my God!
I'm just saying.
Okay, LSU Hive down there. I get it.
I'm just saying. There's something. The voodoo it's coming out. It's coming out.
I respect it.
It's too early. It's too early. But we'll wait and see how this plays out. I think losing in week 1 makes it definitely resets expectations for, I think, a lot of different programs, even like Texas included. I think if you have that much time to prepare and you lose a game like that, and I said this on our Sunday pod, if you lose that week 1 game, I just think it's more difficult to get to the playoff than we're probably assuming. And there's going to be teams that lost these big time week 1 games that maybe Notre Dame, who's like going to get left out of the playoff. And all of a sudden you're like, man, you didn't get the opportunities for those quality wins that we thought. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I'll not hold you to that completely. I'll let you reset before the playoff starts, and I'll get you a chance to get another, maybe by that point you've already lost the LSU bet, a chance for a little double or nothing, some sort of redemption.
I appreciate that. Do you think definitively LSU is the best team in the SEC?
Yeah, I do.
And you thought it before the season. You thought it before the season too. Yeah.
Yes, wouldn't have thought that if they didn't get the additions that they had on defense, but like you saw it in the opener, man. Delane is such a stud at corner and just changes what they can do from their with their secondary. They just added so many key guys, and seeing Whit Weeks back, Harold Perkins Jr. doing some of the things that he did, I just feel like year 2 Blake Baker is going to be a revelation. It was a revelation at Mizzou. At LSU with this talent, man, I'm a believer. So yeah, I do think that they're the best team. Georgia could very well win an SEC championship. Nobody's going to be surprised. So I won't rule that out. But no, I would take LSU over the field.
I think it's week 5. I think I might have said it wrong before. Oregon at Penn State week 5 is gonna be very interesting to tell us where some of the power is in the North. And then obviously Ohio State. Ohio State's going to get tested here coming up. Ohio State has a stretch. So they have 2 easy ones the next 2 weeks, and they have a bye. And then they have a 4-game stretch that's like at Washington, at Illinois, home against Minnesota, at Wisconsin. And again, Ohio State will be favored in all of those, but like that's a tougher stretch than sometimes it is in the Big Ten. So I'll be very curious how Ohio State's able to navigate that. But they're going to start putting more on Julian Sand. And I thought he was poised in week 1, which is like, that's a great start for a young quarterback. He maybe missed a couple guys where he didn't make a throw, where maybe this guy was open and he didn't try it, but he didn't turn it over. He didn't make ridiculous decisions. And against a really good defense for Texas, I thought that was a really good place to start. So I'll be curious how a lot of these teams in the North begin to progress through the year.
Yeah, in week 5, I have LSU losing at Ole Miss, by the way. The only loss this year that I have LSU suffering is at Ole Miss.
Let me write that down.
You can write that down.
I will,
that's fine.
I will, so that's one of my 3 losses in the first 6 for LSU. So go Lane.
You're going to have to get creative to get the other ones.
Go Lane. All right. Big Lane Kiffin fan here. I got to figure out the rest. Yeah. Okay.
Doug, really appreciate the time. Tell people where they can follow everything that you've got going on right now.
So we have a Substack for Ohio State coverage right now, but like the big thing for the folks here is probably you can find us on YouTube. It's a new show called The Bill and Doug Show. So Ohio State focused, but we also talk a lot about college football. But if you're down there and you're wondering about the defending national champions and how they're doing and what's going on in college football, we certainly would invite you to join us on The Bill and Doug Show on YouTube and wherever you find podcasts.
National championship futures, little Heisman bet on Julian Sand. Maybe not so much Jeremiah Smith, something like that. Check them out.
Interesting.
Doing great stuff. Yeah.
Thanks,
very,
folks.
very interesting.
Appreciate you, Connor.
Thanks, man. All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. Are we going to go back to the well? Are we going to go back to Death Valley Jr. for your lad of the week?
Let's go back to Death Valley Jr., man, where Clemson is still trying to find their offense. They're still trying to find their blocking. And we talked about the son of Louisiana, Blake Baker, a little bit, so I'll kind of shed some light on another one. Corey Raymond, the godfather of DBU. He's back again after a rough run at the end of the Coach O tenure, rough run at Florida. They left him out for dead. They said he was washed. He was like Bo Pelini of the defensive backfield. And yet, despite Dabo's dirty tricks of trying to get both of his safeties suspended and succeeding in one of them, despite all of that, DBU feels pretty back, Connor.
It really does. That was impressive to see those guys operate in single coverage, because that's what the system is going to come down to. If you're going to send as many blitzes as Blake Baker's going to want to with this personnel, you need guys that can be on an island, like Mansour Delane. And I think I'm saying it right. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Mansour.
I believe it's Mansour Delane, because I started to say Delaney and I realized very quickly it
wasn't.
I know
it's Delane. I know it's Delane, but I wasn't sure if it's Mansour or Mansour. And I think I looked it up in the offseason. I remember watching like a Virginia Tech podcast to get the pronunciation down.
Yep.
I don't know. Well, we'll get it right. I promise. And if he plays on an all SEC level like he was capable, like he looked like he was doing in the opener, we'll definitely make sure to get Mr. Delane's name correct. But yeah, man, they were not a liability. Like, where were those chunk plays for Clemson?
I mean, that's the type of a game that affects Cade Klubnik to where he has things to prove in his, pre-draft season and everything, or his pre-draft kind of career, to say, hey, like, this is what happens when you face real NFL competition. And in this era, right, like, there are so many coaches that it's easy to say, oh, Nick Saban just left when they started paying players, or the transfer portal, and he couldn't modernize. And to see Corey Raymond, where, again, he was kind of left out for dead. It was, yeah, he can recruit, but he can't coach. Looking up and down this roster at all these transfers that he had to get in from that disaster of Matt House. The house was falling down. There was no studs. There was no frames. It was just leaking water. He had to bring in new transfers this year. And then you just see in the wings, you got DJ Pickett just sitting back there looming like a dragon from Game of Thrones. And you're going, wait a minute.
8 feet tall.
He's just so scary looking. Like, every video of him is looking up at him like, son, do you play basketball? Why are you a defense? Anyway.
DJ Pickett's going to be listed as 6'7" by the time his college career is done.
I might have said this on air, but LSU Social did a video with him, and he was just emotionless looking down at the camera, and he looked like some type of an anime villain. And I was like, he's 18. He's only going to get bigger. Shaq grew like 6 inches after that point. Not that he'll do that, but I'm so fascinated to see this hodgepodge, this Island Misfit toys that he has put together. And again, with the Blake Baker defense, you're going to send so much pressure. Everybody's got to be dogs. Everybody's going to win one-on-one. They got to be the type of player that Corey Raymond was, at LSU during his playing career. So I think it's the most exciting hire Brian Kelly's made for sure.
Do you know how much I wish LSU and Penn State could play a football game tomorrow? I talked about it with Doug of like, who do you take to win a national title? I wish those two teams could play, because I would feel so confident in LSU to win that game. And seeing LSU behind Penn State in the AP poll, I realize it's a week 2 AP poll. Make of it what you will. There are still people that are ranking Penn State ahead of Ohio State. Bless your heart, those people that are doing that. But
how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I need that matchup, Will.
Yeah.
I am now hoping that we get a Penn State LSU matchup so much, because it would just be the best culmination of like Brian Kelly versus James Franklin type of clash of they had better win now and they have win now rosters, and who can actually do something with it. You know where I stand on that, but I need that game in the playoff to happen.
It's the who is going to commit the more costly tote over between those two quarterbacks. It's the D lines, who's going to be able to feed their D line that week and keep them all hydrated because they're so massive. So yeah, I'm excited with what LSU did with that offensive line. I know we talked about it a little bit, but I think the sky's the limit for Joe Sloan and those boys. So I won't just sit here on the homer take, but this is the most excited I've been in a very long time for LSU football.
Yeah, love it. I've got a homer take. It's a pro America take, I guess.
Okay.
More than anything else.
Homer of America.
Larry Pickett Jr., Army football player, not here because of anything he did on the field. He and his dad, Larry Pickett Sr., saved a man from a burning vehicle just before this vehicle burst into flames. Wild. Saw the video, the Facebook video, and it was I think it was Pete Thamel that I saw his tweet and clicked on it. I was like, gotta read that. Not gonna look away from that. The ESPN story said that this guy crashed into a utility pole, which is a very bad thing to crash into, and sparks started flying, and the Picketts were driving back from like a family dinner in New York City and just a few miles outside of West Point. And then they quickly realized after seeing this car, like if they don't take action, this person will die. Like they'll blow up and die, and they would just have that on their conscience. Like that would be terrible. Father and son get the man out of the driver's seat, carry him to the other side of the road. Eventually, the man gains consciousness. Why can I never say that word? Consciousness. And is asking the Picketts, like, what happened? And they're having to explain to him this whole scene.
It's like the BJ Green thing. Are you an Army football player? How did you get here?
They're like, what? Like, I crashed? What happened? Watch this video. It's crazy. It's very crazy that it's actually real. Shout out West Point, by the way, because without that military training, that man dies in tragic fashion, probably. That is as heroic gets. And I'm not sure what awaits this man after his football career is over. But when that man eventually gets a job in the real world, he's going 1-1 in the firefighter draft. If there is one, I would take that guy because, like I said, the video puts it all in perspective. You could read a story like that or see a headline and be like, oh, yeah, man, saved, blah, blah, blah. Watch the video. It is crazy. I have never encountered a scene like that. I always talk about, like, what do you do, fight or flight situations before. My mom has been the person to give someone the Heimlich several times in a restaurant. She had I think she's done it maybe 3 times in public.
Oh, heck yeah, man, that's fire.
Yeah, like the Peter Burns story that we talked about last year when he was at Mizzou and he really needed several people to do the Heimlich on him. Like, my mom has been that fight or flight type person. I've admittedly just never really been in those situations. Never really. Have no idea how I would react in this situation, but I wouldn't have been doing that. I wouldn't have been running towards the sparking, burning car that's about to blow up. I can promise you that.
The reason why I'm laughing is because I actually have survived what could have been a fatal car crash with my buddy who is an Army veteran. And I remember looking back at him and him looking at me and me just feeling a sense of calm. We talk about how tough and intense these football players are, but those military guys are just different. There's just, you could talk about, 6'7", da, da, da. I would take Marines, Army guys, those are kind of my closest friend groups within the service. Know some Navy guys too, know a couple Air Force guys just with going to Full Sail and everything. But it's like the Army guys will bring this level of calm almost. Like I said, my boy Peyton, I'm like, is everyone okay? I look back at Peyton and he goes, whew, all right. And I was just like, I started crying. I was like, I almost killed you guys. And he's like, but you didn't know.
This is true. There is a certain sense.
Yeah, everything gets in perspective. So, we talk about football all day, but that's different right there.
Yeah, shout out my guy Lawrence Butts, who, by the way, this is his company, Broshin, who served he was the one I did in it, and it might mean too much story on this a long time ago, like 2018 or something like that. He watched the Bama Florida State opener in Saddam Hussein's house. Yeah. Wild.
feel like I would remember that. That is actually so funny. That is all time.
Yeah. Good dude. Really good dude. Yeah. Thank you to all those who served. And thank you to Larry Pickett Jr., man. Just have yourself a weekend. My God. It was like all over Good Morning America, like all these different platforms and whatnot. And he's like, I saw his Twitter account. He's just like, thank you to blah, blah, blah news outlet. And then video. Thank you to blah, blah, blah. Like, he's not making money off of this or anything like that. It's just thank you for shining a light on this. Just the most humble way possible to be on social media. Almost like weird that it was that humble.
He's probably like, I got to bring glory to the service and probably God. Yep. And he's like, that's why I'm doing these interviews here, folks. I'm trying to get people to other places. Like I said about me. I love those guys, man.
Yeah. Wired differently. Very much. All right. That'll do it. That's pod. Hope everybody enjoys week 2. Again, do that fall activity early in the day on Saturday. Build yourself up some good credit and then lock in for a really, really good deep slate that will begin later in the afternoon. Please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every episode of the Starting Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Sat Down South, at TJ Guerra, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.